So my rule of thumb is if I see in any of my, particularly the really quick communications, right? So not the big long emails, but the really quick ones where we're sort of firing off requests and stuff like that, is I look for words like this report, the report, her email, whose email, which report, what person. Be specific. Use the actual noun.
Right.
Yeah?
Right.
Not the
good.
pronoun. I don't care random person. I need to know the exact person and the exact report.
Welcome to Season 4 of the Manage Self, Lead Others podcast with Nina Sunday, CSP, for experienced and aspiring people managers. This show helps you explore ways to become a more intentional leader. Each episode, host Nina Sunday speaks with some of the brightest business minds on the planet who share a passion to elevate and transform team culture. Workplace culture hides in plain sight. Is yours flourishing? Join the movement to make your workplace a better place to work. Are you ready? Because it's time to manage self, lead others.
As an expert in communication dynamics, Anneli Blundell helps people get heard at work. Whether it's getting buy-in from the boss, getting through to other colleagues, speaking up in meetings or discussing tricky topics, this is about building conversational cultures where people feel seen, heard and valued at work. And as the Australian Institute of Training and Development's 2021 L&D Professional of the Year and the Gold Stevie Award winner for Female Entrepreneur of the Year 2021, Anneli creates conversational cultures through a carefully crafted blend of keynote speaking, executive coaching and behaviour change programs that stick. Welcome, Anneli Blundell.
Thank you so much, Nina. I'm very excited to be with you again.
Communication needs to be a little bit more intentional. Mm-hmm. So how can people be more intentional when they, is it one-on-one, one-to-many? Give us some examples and situations.
And that's the problem, is that we're spending too much time thinking about what we want to say and less time thinking about how to make it easy to be heard. So, there's a couple of strategies around that. When I talk about effective communication, for me, it's really about being simple, structured, and stakeholder-focused. And one of the areas that I think people spend the least amount of time on is being structured.
And not everybody has interpersonal communication as one of their strengths. I mean, Howard Gardner talked about the 8 intelligences, and not everybody has interpersonal communication as one of their intelligences, but anybody can learn to be better, can't they? Better at it.
Yes, they can. Amen to that, sister. And thankfully so. In fact, I start off a lot of my training saying you don't have to be a natural communicator. You don't have to be someone I've always been a people person, and you don't have to be an expert in communication to use some simple strategies and frameworks that can really give you a leg up when you are trying to clarify your thinking. Because what we know, Nina, is that your clarity of speech is a direct result of your clarity of thinking. So, if people hear you with jumbled messaging and wandering ideas and not able to come to the point or bring people with you, it is a demonstration to them that you're also not clear, possibly not on top of the topic.
So when you're working with people, you probably do workshop training? Do you speak at conferences on this topic as well?
All of the above. So we're one-on-one individual coaching plus training on communication plus keynotes. Yes. We've got people who fall into all sorts of communication traps. And one of them is not being clear, not being structured, not being clear on the ask. You might have people who do too detailed, not detailed enough. All sorts of things could be happening.
And let's get clear, the person who interpreted the message didn't ask for clarification either.
Correct.
It goes two ways.
It absolutely goes two ways, 100%. And that's a really tough lesson for her to learn.
Yeah. And so what's an example of a red flag word that people should avoid when they're wanting to communicate a message?
I guess it depends on your intention. A couple of classic ones are if you're giving feedback to someone, you want to avoid the word but. This is a goodie. It's very it's a simple one, but not everybody is across this. So, for example, if I say, I really like this report, but next time I'd like it in blue, you straight away negate anything I said before the
Mm,
but. However, if I said, I really love this report and can I see it in blue next time, that would be really great. You go, oh, fantastic. It
that's
doesn't
right.
negate anything I've said before the and. So
That's
replacing the but with an and is a nice one to keep people connected and on the same page with you.
Yeah, yes, and in fact, I think it's about episode 86 or something. We've got the author of the book, Yes, and we
Oh,
go
brilliant.
into quite detailed,
Yes.
Avish
Yes.
Parashar, quite a bit of detail on what can go wrong with yes, but and what can go right with yes, and I've
Nice.
made that a personal uh, policy of mine to
Mm.
just double think: Am I about to say but? And could I say and would it be
Yeah.
better?
Yeah. But I mean, if you think about there's so many barriers to communication. If I go back to the model around trying to be a clear communicator, simple, structured, and stakeholder focused. So, one of the big things that I notice happening is that people don't take into account what I call busy brain syndrome. And we've all got it, right? So, we are very busy, we are overwhelmed, overwhelmed, overworked. We've got too much information and too many things to do. So you come at me with some kind of request or piece of information, and you expect me to have enough bandwidth and cognitive capacity to know what you're talking about, what you want from me. But the truth is, when we're asking for things or when we're in communication with people, we often don't give them enough context. We don't give them enough warning to say, hey, I know you're really busy, you're thinking about 20 other things, but let me bring you back to the Smith account. Remember, we talked last month. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. We have an issue with the sign off here. What I'd really love from you is just to get your thoughts on X. So I'm navigating the busy brain syndrome. I understand you're stressed and overwhelmed, and I've got to make it super easy for you to be able to hear me.
I also notice that you can proactively use but to negate something you want them to forget. I know you're really busy, but
Yeah.
so that's
Yes.
that's actually a way to negate the fact
Yes.
that, well, let's see if we can fit this in.
Yes.
So yeah,
Oh,
so that's another way of using it.
I love that. And, when I think about the sort of strategies that we can use, I mean, really simple ones that I think they get this pretty right in written communication. We know how powerful bullet points are and headings and bold and underline, right? So we all know that busy readers need to be led through the information so people can skim. This is how we read nowadays, Nina. We skim. You've got a speed reading lesson. So we skim, and so we have to make it easy for the brain to visually pick up on our cues. But the same thing happens. Remember, we're talking here about face-to-face communication. We're talking about verbal communication, right? So how do we do the same thing? And in terms of helping people wade through a wall of text, which we don't want the brain to have to sort through. In fact, there's some really interesting research that I'd read recently from Denmark that looked at the difference between a wall of words, basically just here's a chunk of text, and the same information but structured with clear bullet points. And it turned out that people reading the wall of words versus the structured text were 15% faster reading one to the other. And to me, that is the classic benefit of accommodating busy brain. I haven't got the brain capacity to wade through all that information and try and work out what you're asking of me. Make it simple.
Well, one of the things that when I do business writing training, some
Hmm.
people have never heard of the term white space. And as a speed reader, I need the white space in order to see clearly the words. I can't speed read words that are just all, compacted into,
Mm.
like cold cut meat, or a sausage.
Mm.
It needs to
Yeah.
be it needs to be sort of spread out so you can actually see the meaning in the space between the words. It's quite interesting. And so white space is so important. And the thing about segues or these connecting terms, and what I was thinking of has come back to me. There was an example where I was doing a session myself on communication some years ago, and it was with mortgage brokers.
Mm-hmm.
And we agreed that I would do a bit of a mystery shop and ring up 3 mortgage brokers. And the one that was standout positive for me was the one that said, well, Nina, the first thing we do is we get a valuation on the house and blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing we do is blah, blah, blah. And then thirdly, the next thing we do. Now, I decided when I compared what she said to everyone else, I went, oh, she's the best one. So I reported that back and I told them I was going to present this. Do you know what? Ahead of time, they prepared an award for her for being the best of the mystery shopped brokers. But honestly, it was her ability to say, first we do this, then we do that, finally we do this, and it just she signposted it for me. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it's really necessary. And in fact, it's necessary on a level that we cannot even comprehend right now. I've been tinkering with AI. I am not an expert. I have been tinkering.
We're all tinkering with AI, yes.
We're all tinkering with AI. So I've been tinkering with prompts and I've been tinkering with, using it in the L&D space and stuff like that. And I had a bit of a crash course with a colleague of mine. Shout out to Naomi Waldron from BSI Digital. She's the guru in this space.
Right.
So she was supremely helpful for me. She gave me a couple of tips and I thought to myself, wow, this is no different to being a clear communicator face to face, like human to human. So some of the things she was saying is that in terms of prompt hygiene, if you like, what makes a good prompt, how do we get the best responses from AI? She said AI likes a clear context. Tell me who you are, or tell me who I am. You are a copywriter doing this task for me.
Can I just stop you there? That's the most important shift that I've realised is we no longer tell whoever we're using, but AI, who you are. You tell AI who they are.
Yes.
That you are an expert copywriter.
Yes.
You win awards for your choice of language. You can make it as flowery as you like.
Yes, that's right. So we have to create clear context for AI so it knows the headspace it's coming from, basically.
What role do questions play in communication? Asking rather than telling. Is that sort of a thread that you pick up on?
Nina, that is a whole other discussion, and book the time and place and I will be there because I have a huge program on building coaching skills for leaders, and the whole thing centers around curious questions. And there's a whole, formula around that. But I say to people, if you can master the art of a great question, you will be a better leader, a better parent, a better partner, a better human, an all-round better contributor to society, because you're curious, you're looking to understand, you're looking to be enlightened rather than to assert your thinking. You're more open to learning and having other people share their ideas. And of course, what we know about asking questions is if other people come up with their own ideas, i.e. people in your team, they are 5 times more committed to their own ideas. If that doesn't do it for you, my friend, I don't know what does.
When you deal with a lot of people when you're prepping for a presentation or a workshop, what's the one mistake that some managers are making around their communication? What's a pattern that you've observed?
People don't offer a lot of context. What I notice is that when we're busy, and I know that I do this for myself, so just imagine that the situation is you've got people who are doing instant messaging while they're emailing, while they might be on the phone, while someone might be leaning over the petition having a chat to them, right? So straight away, we've got a number of things going on, and we all know, can we just agree, multitasking is a myth. So, we're not doing any of these things well. So what's happening is because we are switching contexts, when we communicate to people, we forget to reorient them to our context. So I do this all the time, Nina. So I will send a message to my EA and I'll say, hey, Jenny, can you send me that report? because I'm looking at the data. I'm looking at the last email we were having. So I send her an instant message. She doesn't know what email I'm looking at, and she doesn't know what that report is. So I have to constantly go back and go, can you please send me the report on X file from
Yes.
dated blah, right? Give me more
Yes.
specifics to orient me to where your head is at right now.
Yes, I hear you on that. I see that frequently and I go, that is so ambiguous. All you had to do was write down which report or which
Yes.
link, and it would be absolutely clear. It's like
Yeah.
we really have to put ourselves in the shoes of the person we're writing to or
Yep.
speaking to.
So my rule of thumb is if I see in any of my, like particularly the really quick communications, right? So
Mm,
not the big long
mm.
emails, but the really quick ones where we're sort of firing off requests and stuff like that, is I look for words like this report, the report, her email, like whose email, which report, what person. Be specific. Use the actual noun.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Very
Not the
good.
pronoun. I don't care like random person. I need to know
Yeah.
the exact person and the exact report.
So, one of my other episodes, I was speaking with Scott Dutton, and when he's a conflict whisperer, and he was talking a little bit about how you can bring up unsatisfactory performance in a way that's really soft. And he
Hmm.
said, like, say, a simple example, when you were late for a meeting and it held us all up. I don't know if you're aware that when you were late for a meeting, we all felt that we had to repeat what we just said and we felt like we wasted a bit of time. So I don't know if you're aware of that. And you just
Mm.
pause and let
Mm.
the import of that, let them respond. I mean, if there's silence, there's silence, but hopefully people feel the need to
Mm.
reply to that. So do you like that sort of tactic?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is something that comes a lot in my coaching trainings. And so one of the tips I have for my leaders, if they are we want to broach critical feedback, but we want to keep it light and we want to
Yes.
reduce the defensiveness, right? So as an
Yes.
example, rather than saying, Nina, why was the report late? So for starters, we don't want to use the word why. Already you're justifying, you're defending and having to explain. Secondly, I don't want to shame you and make you feel bad because the report was late until
Mm.
I know why. I
Yeah.
might do that at the end, but let's give
Yes.
you the benefit of the doubt, right? So
Ah.
rather than saying, why was that report late? I might start with something like, I noticed the report was behind schedule. I'm curious, what did you prioritize instead?
Oh, isn't that nice? That's very nice.
So you think about that. So the person we've acknowledged that it wasn't on time, and
And
I'm
we're
not
not saying that they're lazy. They just had
no
something else that they did instead,
correct. And
obviously.
I don't yet know my stance on that. I don't know
Mm.
if I want to reprimand. I don't know if I just want to train maybe or clarify expectations. Maybe I wasn't clear. So I don't know yet how I'm going to deal with that until I know a little bit more about it. Hence, back to the coaching hat of curious questions, right? So help me understand, what did you prioritize instead? And they'll say, "Oh, I worked on the Smith account because I thought you said it had to go out and that had to be the most important thing." And I go, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can see how that happened." And I didn't mean that, but yep, no, that's fine. So just for next time,
Mm.
this monthly report trumps everything else, right?
There
The
you go.
CEO's waiting on it. Let's reestablish clarification around this. But if it was a case of, oh, well, I just didn't get to it. Well, what else did you get to? Well, not much. I'm like, now we're in performance management land.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Anneli. Like, how is it? I don't meet many people who have such a handle on communication as this. How is it that your path has led you to this destination?
Growing up in the corporate space, I started as a graduate at the ANZ Bank. So I started very young and I
Right.
started in the grad role as a branch manager in the banking system.
Oh.
And I can tell you right now, as a 5'2" young female, early 20s, I had zip authority. Nina, zip, zip, zilch, and zero. Everyone who came into the bank, of which I was the branch manager, thought I was the teller. They never believed that I was the manager, like literally wouldn't believe until I was
Gee.
leading them to my office and sitting behind my desk with the plaque with my name on it. They still wouldn't believe me. So I've spent a lot of my early work career being very interested in what gives people that authority,
Yes.
what makes people listen to you when you speak, who gets heard in the workplace, who doesn't, and why? Are there patterns around that? Why is there a 20-nothing-year-old that can sit on a panel and just keep everyone in rapt attention, and yet me as a 20-nothing-year-old can't even keep the local customer, to hand in their passbooks on time, right? So what's going on with that? So I've been very attuned to communication and the nuance of communication most of my working life. And I can tell you, thank you for the compliment about, being across communication. And I have to say that is as a result of practice, ferociously learning everything I can, reading everything I can, going to every program I can, but applying it, practicing it, applying it. That's the only way you get better at this stuff.
That's right. And it's having the intention to improve your communication. And I think if you just go through life thinking, oh, well, why should I bother? Or it's good enough. Or if they can't, I hear this, if they can't work it out, that's their problem. What? And that's like in those arguments, well, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah. Come on, Nina, there's nothing wrong with that statement. Surely that statement's legit, isn't it? Oh, that's
well, look,
hilarious.
our time is coming to a close, so I'm sure there's people listening that go, how can we work with Anneli Blundell? How can we get her in or get her to do an online program to work with us? So tell our audience.
Go straight to my website. Everything is on there. Quickest way to get to me, it's www.anneliblundell.com, which is my full name, which will be in the show notes, I'm sure.
Exactly. So, look, Anneli, today has been just a wonderful exploration. I picked up a few tips and was able to get feedback on some of my own.
Thanks, Nina.
On this episode, Anneli Blundell and I had the most amazing conversation. We toed and froed about best tips and best practice for communication, connecting with people and engaging with others. It's important to be more intentional when you communicate and knowing exactly what to say. And I hope that you got some good ideas out of today's session. Now, remember to tell people about how wonderful this podcast is, because that's what helps us reach the global corners of the world. And apparently, we've got a listen score that places us in the top 5% of all podcasts in the world. So that's quite a milestone that we're celebrating these days. So until next time, thanks for listening. My name is Nina Sunday. I'm your podcast host. Bye for now.
Nina Sunday CSP is on a mission to help leaders transform culture. Nina Sunday travels from Brisbane, Australia to facilitate half-day or full-day workshops at your location anywhere across Australia. For a list of Nina's topics around leading people, productivity and communication, go to brainpowertraining.com.au/signature programs to request a tailored proposal. To book Nina Sunday CSP to speak at your conference in Australia, New Zealand, Asia or internationally, head to ninasunday.com for details.